Odesу, banda из Амура.
Hey, how's it going? So you find me in the northern side of Odessa, way off the tourist trail. You can get here on one of these buses or you can get the tram. Or you can take a taxi.
And if there's no taxi?
I decided to take a wander up to the northern side of the city because I wanted to inspect, just how locals generally live in this part of Odessa, and it's incredibly different to central Odessa, the place that tourists will normally see. There's a lot of 10 to 12 story high-rise buildings, all in lines. Every building generally has a very small little play area for children. It's generally much more residential. And the best way to describe it, if you're from the US, long busy roads, and you see petrol stations, gas stations as you say, supermarkets, and then the odd small little shops here and there. Not too much in terms of entertainment. For example, I just walked past a supermarket that used to be a cinema and no longer a cinema. So in terms of entertainment, there isn't too much to go on. However, there is the odd beautiful little square or park, and I'm going to show you this one that I've just discovered. This is, I believe I'm going to be pronouncing this wrong, as Dobrovolsky Square. I think that's the English, but in obviously Ukrainian and Russian it's slightly different. This is what it's called in that language. And let's have a look around. Let's have a look at what this square is and why is it called Dobrovolsky Square. Now, Dobrovolsky, Georgy Dobrovolsky, is this man, and he was born in Odessa. He was born in Odessa a long time ago. However, he was legendized. He was put into legendary status, I think is probably the best way to describe him. It's sadly not looking like much right now, as you can see. Very much in pieces. This park hasn't suffered any attacks from the pesky Russians, and thankfully there have been no sirens going off since all of today. The last sirens that we could hear was around about 12:30 last night, but so far so good. This statue is still in one piece, and it's great to see a statue in one piece because, as you may have previously seen on my other videos, Catherine the Great has been pulled down and some other Russian have been pulled down, and I think that's sad. I think that's just as sad when we see the statues being pulled down in America. We see them being pulled down in woke, radical lefty places like Bristol. When we see statues being pulled down, I think it's wrong, and I think statues should be preserved no matter who they are. And this is Georgy Dobrovolsky, as we can see here. Georgy Dobrovolsky. Sadly, he died in 1971. How did he die, you might ask? Well, if anyone remembers the Soyuz 11 that went up into space, he was one of the cosmonauts that pioneered the space race. Obviously, he went up there 2 years after man first landed on the moon, and he was docking with, at the time, the Russians for the Soviet space station. And unfortunately, him and his two colleagues on the spaceship, two cosmonauts, went up and depressurized. So all of the good air left their capsule. He's effectively one of three men who have only ever died in space. 1971 was the first time that's ever happened. When I say space, it's the part of space where we define as space, so above the certain line where we leave the Earth's atmosphere and it becomes space. For example, the Challenger crew died in the Earth's atmosphere. Many astronauts, and I think there's something like 120 plus astronauts and cosmonauts have died trying to get into space. But him and his two other cosmonauts died sadly in 1971, and that's the reason he's celebrated here, because he was from Odessa, he was from this part of Odessa. But let's have a look around this park. As you can see, children's playgrounds, very common in Ukraine to see children's playgrounds, bouncy castles, and this is despite the fact that war is going on. People are trying to live their life. Beautiful roses are sort of blossoming. Little old babushka is over here by the cars. The reason I wanted to come to this park wasn't just for Dobrovolsky. It was for this thing that you can see coming into shot. Now, anyone that's a music fan will probably be familiar, at least in some way, with the band Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden, the British band, the band fronted by, is it Dickinson? I'm not a huge Iron Maiden fan, I'm not a big metal fan. But apparently, this was put here on their world tour. and apparently at night time it lights up. Sort of left here a sort of commemoration of the time that Iron Maiden came through Odessa. This is what I'm told anyway. How true this is, I'm not sure, but this was a piece brought to life on the Iron Maiden Odesa tour. What a piece, I think. Now I have to say, I tried finding information on this online and I generally couldn't. So if anyone's got some extra information on here, I know there's some Iron Maiden fans in my subscribers, maybe you know a little bit more about this, but I wanted to sort of show you this, show you that despite the graffiti, it's still here. I don't think it was originally here, but it was put here. We've got a nice bit of graffiti here. Memories of Moldova, really. I don't know if you guys remember my time in Moldova. We'd always see lots of dicks. Here we have an Iron Maiden sculpture, and I have to say, despite the graffiti, I think it's quite impressive. Two children playing while the adult, or two adults, are feeling very frustrated. I think maybe that's the sort of sign that while the kids play, the adults stress about what's going on, and in a way it's quite symbolic about what's going on in Odessa and all of Ukraine right now.
Ми з вами й драйвуємо.
The adults are stressing, they're wondering, is tonight going to be their last night here? Are they going to make it through the night? Whereas the kids, thankfully, due to the protection of the adults, are left to play and left carefree in the world, and I think that's quite a beautiful image.
Вісім, здається, разів, якщо я не помиляюсь. Тобто це... Ні, навіть 9, мабуть, так. Тобто після кожного сигналу тривоги, так як ми не встигаємо до сховища, саме безпечне місце – це ванна.
And here we have a very old Soviet building. First time I've been to this park, but this is definitely Soviet architecture. Over here on the wall, we probably got some adverts, probably people saying, looking for apartments. Yes, 23,500 hryvnia for an apartment, 6,000, 27,000, 19,000. To give you some perspective, it's about 46,000 is £1,000. So I think 38,000 is about $1,000. I think that's how it works. So this one's very cheap. And look, we're over here, just like we have in any Odesa park, hot dog stand, coffee stand. So how do I get to this part of town? Well, you might notice this little railway. It's not really a railway, it's a tram line. Tram lines go from one side of the city, the north side, all the way down to the south side. I'm coming back from the park that you've just partly seen, and I'm just going to get myself onto this tram. Just got to make sure that I'm on the right side, because I'm going to be facing the right way. Check out the larder over there. And in theory, it's 15 hryvnia at the moment, but obviously by the time you do this, prices will probably have gone up, but 15 hryvnia in 2023. What I really dislike about Odesa, but it does mean that we are well connected when it comes to communications. Everywhere you go, you see these 4G, 5G masts, basically everywhere. They're attached to every single skyrise, and they're attached willy-nilly. Thing is, 5G only really works as long as you can see the mast. So they've put them up everywhere. There's another one at the back over there. It has to be said, this is not the prettiest of parks. I mean, an example, it feels a bit Berlinish with all this graffiti. But yeah, not a pretty park. But I just wanted to show you sort of what Odesa is, and just off the tourist steps into a sort of local square to show people how Odesa functions for Joe Public and how Odesa is for Joe Public. And these are the people having to endure the ongoing war with the Russian terrorist state. Anyway, as we've come to the end of the park, I wanted to thank you for watching, and hopefully it's giving you a little insight into how the people of Odesa might live in the local communities. Until next time, keep progressing, and I'll see you in the next video.